Hello, hello, friends. Welcome back to another Monday night masterclass with Coach Michelle. I've got my little phone going here because, of course, nothing is showing up on Facebook as usual. So, hello to Julie. Hello to Peggy. Hi to Kay. Um, so tonight's class is actually one of these things that is a little bit controversial, we should say, in the keto spectrum. People who are influencers, people who are coaches, people who are very much into a ketogenic lifestyle. I'm not even going to say low carb, but ketogenic because I don't want to say it goes against what a lot of that teaches, and I am not against what those people, say. The one thing I am discovering through my own journey is though it is not the only way. And I will explain later as, we go through the class. I just want to put that disclaimer out there that yes, everything at the very beginning of my journey and everything that I did on social media was all about keto, 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 keto. Keeping us keto. It was our handle forever. It still is on YouTube, but I I have shifted, I have pivoted as we've discussed before because the needs of my body changed, and so that's why I wanted to go over tonight metabolic flexibility, what it is, fueling a body that will work with you and not against you. It's not just a catchy little phrase there for the title of the video. It's something that I have discovered personally is something that is what we should all be striving for is metabolic flexibility. And hi, Andrea. So, first off, what is metabolic flexibility? It's not some phrase that I just made up, I promise. Um, Imagine your body as a hybrid vehicle. Okay, that's probably the best uh, comparison or description that I can do for that. Some days you run on carbs, like some days, sometimes the hybrid carb runs on uh, electric, and other days you run on fat. Sometimes it runs on gas. Metabolic flexibility is the body's ability to switch back and forth between these fuels, I guess we can say, and without a lot of issue. So, not causing energy crashes to happen, not causing cravings to come back like crazy, and not having digestive issues by eating certain things. I know when we're on a ketogenic diet, carnivore, wherever you are on that ketogenic spectrum, I'm just going to say that because it's basically everywhere from low carb to lion diet. If you go off plan, most of the time you feel like straight trash. Okay? What I am here to talk about is not having to be keto forever. It's about being able to handle carbs and still burn fat and doing it efficiently. I know it sounds crazy, but just hear me out, okay? Because honestly, true metabolic health, which is what we are all striving for, right? I would hope, is about being able to handle both of them. I'm not talking about going back to the standard American diet and overdosing on carbohydrates, but you should be able to eat vegetables without your body going bonkers because it's so used to only handling one fuel source. So, I want to kind of explain to you guys, not obviously not too sciencey, what happens with our bodies when we eat or drink because there is an order of what gets metabolized first in our bodies depending upon what we consume. And some of you may have seen this in a chart or a Facebook post or something before. So the first thing that the body will metabolize is alcohol. And why is that? Well, alcohol gets metabolized first because the body sees it as a toxin, because frankly, that's exactly what it is. Alcohol is a toxin. It will halt your fat and carbohydrate metabolism until it's cleared out of your body. So if you are a regular drinker, if you like to go out and do happy hour with the gals, or you have your glass of wine after work, or you drink on a regular basis, that's usually why you will end up in a stall, because your body is having to work to clear itself of alcohol before it will start burning anything else. The second, number two, as far as metabolism, is carbohydrates. And as we all know, carbs, no matter what it is that you're consuming, if it's a candy bar or a potato, is going to be broken down into glucose, right? And everybody gets very, very afraid of the idea of glucose in our bloodstream. Because yes, our bodies do produce sufficient glucose for us to function throughout the day. Our liver produces it while we're sleeping, and it's basically to keep our brains functioning properly. It's used immediately for energy, or it will be stored as glycogen in the liver and our muscles. And that's where a lot of these trainers and influencers and things like that differ and argue about what's better to fuel our bodies when we're working out. Should we have carbs? Should we not have carbs? So on and so forth. And then excess carbohydrates get stored as fat after the glycogen tanks, are full. I'm going to keep using this car analogy because it's fun. The third thing that gets metabolized is protein. The proteins get broken down into amino acids. And the amino acids obviously help, go to our cells and so on and so forth. Sorry, guys, I'm really thirsty tonight. It is used for tissue repair, for enzymes in our bodies, for our hormones, but not necessarily primarily for energy, depending on what else we have in our bodies, right? And gluconeogenesis, if you've heard of that, a lot of people misinterpret what it means, but it can be converted into glucose if it's necessary. But it's kind of an inefficient, I don't want to say carbohydrate, but it's not as efficient as, consuming carbs or anything else. The fourth is fats. So fat is what is metabolized last, because it is digested more slowly than any of these other things. It can be used for steady, long-term energy, especially when we're resting or we're doing low-intensity movement. And if we consume too much fat, and yes, you can consume too much fat, it can be stored in fat cells. Again, the debate about eating ridiculous amounts of fat, doing a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, for me, that did not work. It was not necessary because I still have plenty of fat stores on my body. So I'm not going to be sitting there eating sticks of butter. I'm just not. So the reason I gave you guys this order is because you need to know about it, because it matters if you're consistently snacking or drinking alcohol. Your body is never going to tap into the stored fat that we already have. And that's kind of the whole point, right? And if you're only relying on carbs, like solely relying on carbs for fuel, you are going to consistently deal with energy crashes and cravings, because the carbohydrates are going to run out, and that's all your body knows is use the carbs, use the carbs, use the carbs. So that's why metabolic flexibility is so important. Your body, again, can shift from one fuel to the next. So, how do you know if you're metabolically inflexible? Which I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably 75% of people are metabolically inflexible. And I was one of those people 5 years ago when I started on this journey. If you have irritability, if you get shaky or you feel weak, or you even feel anxious between meals, you're probably metabolically inflexible. If you are craving sugar or other sources of carbohydrates on a regular basis, you're probably inflexible. If you crash after eating a high carb meal, think of Thanksgiving and Christmas. You're probably metabolically inflexible. If you feel just drained, like you have no energy, it's completely tanked during workouts, unless you have eaten right before it, probably inflexible. Or you struggle to fast. And I'm not talking like extended fasts. I'm talking even intermittent fasting. Like I generally stop eating by noon and I am not hungry until 6 o'clock the next morning. That was a sign of my metabolic flexibility starting to come into play. And I've done that for years now. So why is metabolic flexibility something that I feel is crucial for sustainable living? The whole point of all of this is for it to be sustainable, right? I have learned through my own journey what is and is not sustainable for me, especially as I am aging. This midlife body is constantly going through different things. So, why is metabolic flexibility crucial? Well, we want food freedom, right? And food freedom is something that a lot of people misinterpret. You don't have to be afraid of an apple or a banana. I'm saying it here. Yes. You shouldn't fear fruit. You shouldn't be afraid to have a piece of birthday cake without feeling awful afterwards. That's actual freedom because that's what's sustainable. Now, if you have unresolved issues with food strongholds, which we have talked about in the past, then yeah, you're probably going to have to steer clear of certain things. I know my limits and I know what I can't do. As I've said before, a sweet potato is not going to trigger me. Chocolate donuts probably will. So I don't eat the chocolate donuts, but I am not afraid of fruit. And I eat fruit on a regular basis now. You're going to have a better result with fat loss if you are metabolically flexible. Because again, remember, your body can switch from one fuel to the next. And it can burn fat overnight or in between meals. That's what we want to happen. You're going to end up seeing better results without excessive cutting, without huge calorie deficits. The CICO bros, right? We want our bodies to be able to process what we already have on it without having to really diminish what it is that we're consuming. Also, blood sugar balance. We want to avoid those spikes and crashes because that leads to more hunger, that leads to more snacking, it leads to more overeating, and the cycle continues. So more flexibility in our bodies equals better consistency. If your body can handle both fats and carbohydrates well, then you can be more consistent without being super rigid and afraid of certain foods. That is what also helps make habits, healthier habits, stick. I know, I told you guys this was going to be a controversial one tonight because it goes against everything that we've always been taught, right? In the keto world. Andrea said she couldn't even eat high fat like some do. She would pass out. Yeah, right? I believe that. So, how do we build metabolic flexibility? Well, first of all, we have to heal metabolically. If we have metabolic dysfunction, if we are dealing with metabolic syndrome, we have to heal from that. The metabolic syndrome and the metabolic dysfunction is not because of fruits and vegetables. It's because of all the other shit that we have eaten basically our entire lives that have done so much damage to our body. So we do need to heal before we start putting this flexibility back into play. So how do we make this an actionable step? How do we build a metabolically flexible body? Well, we're going to start with nutrient-dense meals made with whole foods. If you want to shop organic, if you want to shop grass-fed, and you can afford it, go for it. I do shop organic produce just because that's what I choose to do. But I also buy ground beef when it's on sale at the grocery store because it's whatever's within my budget. So obviously we want to prioritize protein and healthy fats. But if you choose to have slow digesting carbs, maybe add a little bit of those in, but eat them after you've had your protein and your fat. Okay? We want to eat things in a specific order. Some people will try carb cycling, if you've heard that before, or, lower carb, higher carb days. And it's not as a punishment, but it's to help to train your body to build or to burn the fat efficiently. Again, I did keto. I've been ketogenic, low carb, whatever, for 5 years now. And I had to make changes a year ago because I was in almost a 2-year-long stall, eating what I was supposed to eat, cutting calories. Guys, I was down to anywhere between 1,000 and 1,200 calories a day, and I was not losing weight. So I had to learn to essentially reverse diet. Eating a whole bunch more meat and fat didn't do it for me. But adding in an apple at lunch, having a banana at breakfast after I had my eggs and my bacon, adding those small amounts of carbs into my meals got things going again. I know people are going to say, oh, no. You started losing weight again because you started a GLP-1. The GLP-1 started in January of this year. I started losing weight again last January. And I am microdosing, which means I have zero slowing of my gastric motility happening. I still get hungry. I still eat all of my meals. I eat, trust me. If you were on the cruise with me, you saw me eat. But I actually get full because I am having more than just specific foods. And I'm also being satiated for longer periods of time. That stopped just doing keto. Ketoing harder, right? That didn't work for me. I shouldn't be able to eat 5 steaks at dinner because I am not getting full. That's not normal. So that is what I ended up having to do for myself and what has led to the success that I've been experiencing. Okay, sorry, I'm reading comments as I'm going through. So we want to train our bodies to burn fat efficiently. So sometimes you do a little bit higher carb, sometimes you do lower carb, depending upon the day. Depending if you're a cycling female, depending upon the time of month. So many factors come into play. And those who are peri or postmenopausal, again, something that you have to consider, because certain carbohydrates are going to help our bodies as we are transitioning, losing estrogen, losing progesterone and testosterone. Like, we have to eat differently than we did before. So, practicing intermittent fasting. I am not a fan of extended fasts as a female, and specifically as a middle-aged female, because it puts a lot of stress on our bodies that we don't need on top of everything else that is happening either with our bodies physically or emotionally or mentally or whatnot. But intermittent fasting, big fan of that. My son has learned to love intermittent fasting as well. It's pretty funny, but he's 27. So this, again, is encouraging your body to use the stored fat between meals and overnight. Strength training. I love strength training. Lift the heavy things, please. The muscle tissue will improve the insulin sensitivity that we all need, especially if we're dealing with insulin resistance, PCOS, type 2 diabetes, so on and so forth. It's going to help improve our insulin sensitivity, and it's going to burn that fat. The more muscle we have, the more fat we're going to burn. Stop snacking all freaking day. Let your body tap into the fat stores that are already here. We are not cows. We are not meant to graze all day long. For those people who have had weight loss surgery, I know that's what we are told to do after we have surgery, because essentially that's all we can do immediately after surgery. But that is not what we should be doing, because then we've got that constant flow of insulin coming out and our bodies aren't getting a rest. So we need to stop snacking all the time. And then for some people, this is going to be a hard one. You need to learn to limit alcohol. Save it for special occasions. You know, if fat loss and metabolic healing is your goal, that should be more important than that cocktail at happy hour. I drink one time a year. That's it. And it's at my office Christmas party. That's enough for me, because I don't need the alcohol, number one, to be social. I'm a social butterfly without alcohol, but I don't need it to have a good time. It's kind of fun to feel a little woo every now and then, but once a year, I'm good. So here's where mindset kind of comes into this whole thing as far as metabolic flexibility. If you have said in the past, which, admit it, I do, carbs make me gain weight. Oh my God, I feel so terrible. Ugh. I had bread today. I'm so bloated. I feel like garbage. I've gone through that. But it's not about cutting those forever. It's about healing our metabolic system, right? We want to be able, again, to have some of those foods from time to time so that they no longer trigger inflammation. They no longer trigger the cravings that we've got. They no longer cause us to have these horrific energy crashes. Metabolic flexibility will give us confidence going forward with how we eat. I know it sounds silly, but if you're consistently stressed out about what you're eating, you are being ruled by food still. That is not what we want. We want freedom, right? We don't want to fear foods. We don't want to go bananas and go back to eating fast food on a regular basis, or having all the processed garbage that's out there. No. But we don't want to be afraid of certain ingredients. You can enjoy life. You can enjoy meals without losing complete control or sacrificing the results that you're looking to have. So, what have I implemented into my diet? I've already told you guys. I have bananas every once in a while. I will have an apple every once in a while. I have sourdough, homemade sourdough. I've got my sourdough girl. She lives not too far from me. It's fantastic. I will have sourdough, homemade sourdough bread like 4 times a week. But again, it is after I have my protein. I will have some sourdough bread. It is after I have my protein that I will have some sort of fruit. I time it specifically for that reason. And that has been what has also helped me to continue on with burning the fat off of my body. And again, not being afraid of food all the time, not fearing food. We don't want to fear food, guys. We don't. Not all food is the same, but guess what? Processed garbage is not food. I think we can all agree to that, right? So what do we do? Well, I said earlier, we need to make sure that if we're talking about metabolic flexibility, we are also working on healing metabolically. We can't be a raging insulin storm and expect to have these things work out. So one of the best things you can do is track how you feel between meals. Okay, I know people hear tracking and they go, I hate tracking. I don't want to track. That's so stressful. I don't like it. So I want you to track. I want you to get create basically a food mood journal and track how you feel in between meals and after you eat certain foods. Just with what you're eating right now. How do they make you feel? How long have you been on this journey? How is your metabolic health? Have you had labs done recently to be able to see what kind of healing you've done within your body? That is very important to do. I am not telling somebody who is a type 2 diabetic to continue eating things that could affect their health and ultimately cause more damage from the type 2 diabetes. I am saying let's get to a level of metabolic healing and then get the metabolic flexibility going. Because there are a lot of people out there who will try certain things and realize that they are missing out on certain nutrients, I guess you can say, because of how they're eating. And they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth then, because they're telling people, oh, you have to eat this way in order to feel this way, in order to be this way, and so on and so forth. But then they're realizing that, wait, I had this and I actually felt better. So, weird, right? That's bringing metabolic flexibility back into your life. So track how you feel, get a food mood journal, and track how you're feeling in between meals. And then just incorporate one strategy at a time to help basically train the metabolic flexibility. Get your body used to, oh, we're going to do this now? Okay. Don't jump in head first. Let's introduce one specific type of food that you've been avoiding per week to see how it makes you feel, to see how your body responds to it. And then we can go from there. It's kind of like the elimination diets that people will do, and then they start to reintroduce foods back in to see how they feel. This is the exact same process. And also, probably the most important thing is just to stay consistent. Consistency, not perfection, right? That's what we want. And hopefully you can experience the same success that I have, that other people have, that other coaches have, without fear of, being crucified online, because what we did before and what worked for us before is now changing, because our bodies are changing, because our metabolic health is changing. And ultimately, we want to be able to eat things that we wouldn't normally eat without having massive regrets. I can't tell you how many people on the cruise came back saying, oh my gosh, I'm down 2 pounds, I'm down 5 pounds. Well, I can say almost for a fact that those people were not 100% on plan while they were on vacation. I wasn't. I've admitted I ate sugar-free dessert every freaking night. But I came back home feeling okay. I wasn't bloated. I wasn't, except for the travel. Well, I felt okay except for having COVID, but I wasn't in any sort of food distress. Let's put it that way. My joints did not hurt. I wasn't bloated. My clothes were not tight. I felt good. I didn't get on the scale because it felt like garbage when I came home because of having a virus that was, trying to whoop my butt. But my husband lost weight on the cruise, and he ate more on that cruise than he normally does at home. Metabolic flexibility is working for us. It is working for others. So that should be the goal, is to be able to enjoy ourselves, to be able to live life, to be able to have the creme brulee at dessert if we want to, and not have massive regrets and not feel like crap afterwards. So, all right, I am going to go through comments. So Andrea said, every time you talk about chocolate donuts, I instantly think about arguments I have with my husband about those dang things. And Andrea says she is starting to flex. Yes, she is, because I'm her coach. She ate a salad with chicken for dinner, and she is going to blow into her lumen at 7:30 to see if she is still fat burning. Don't be afraid of lettuce, guys. I still crave salads. I love salads. Okay, so well, I'm interested to see what your lumen says, Andrea. So, not a whole lot of comments. So either I made people really angry, or something I said made sense, right? Anybody have any questions, any comments, anything else to add in with regards to metabolic flexibility and how scary it is, right? It's still hot in the desert. And I specifically wore my Primal shirt tonight because Primal Living also included carbohydrates and chasing after, buffaloes and things like that. So, okay. I don't see any other comments or questions or anything like that. So we will go ahead and end this masterclass a little bit earlier. Andrea, now, she says what she has learned from the changes she's made through the years is that change is good. Yes. She's learned hormones for us postmenopausal women are a trip. Eat. And then she's going to message me. So thank you, Andrea. I appreciate you, chiming in as far as your experience as well as a postmenopausal woman, as somebody who's gone through what you've gone through your entire life, and the way that you have been able to heal and the success that you are now having, branching out and allowing the change to happen in your life. So everybody have a great night. Thank you so much for being on here. And if you are catching the replay, please comment that you are on the replay so we know. Okay? See ya.